According to officials with the TSA, if this partial government shutdown goes on much longer, some airports may be forced to close, which would be a huge inconvenience for business travelers, spring breakers, Cinnabon, Hudson News, Chili's to go, all of it. So far, the shutdown has forced 50,000 airport security officers to work without pay. Hundreds of them have already quit. 10% of all TSA agents called in sick yesterday. There are long lines across the country. These are lines hours and hours long at airports. They're saying that if you're flying to one of the popular spring break destinations, don't. Just stay home and watch TV. Watch a show about a trip instead. The situation has become so dire for those who aren't being paid. Airports are asking travelers now to bring TSA agents gift cards for food so they can eat for real. They're going to have to start selling the weed they confiscate pretty soon. But you know what? I'll say something about our men and women in the TSA. You don't sign up to work at the TSA to make money. You do it because you love loudly reminding strangers to put their laptops in a bin. We're now on day 33 of this standoff. Democrats want people to be able to make their flights. Republicans want ICE agents to be able to wear masks when they shoot us, and no one will budge.
Republicans are pushing to let ICE agents wear masks while making the arrests, and, well, nobody's going to budge on that. Meanwhile, 50,000 federal workers are showing up to their jobs every single day with no idea when their next paycheck is coming. And these people aren't politicians. They're not even lobbyists collecting checks either way. So they're just regular people that have rent due at the end of the month and, and have kids who need to eat. And the reason they're in this position is because the two sides in Washington cannot really agree on paperwork, pretty much. Not policy, not some grand ideological battle, just paperwork. And TSA agents are literally accepting gift cards from strangers just to be able to afford lunch, while the man responsible for this shutdown is kicking back in Florida resort and charges $500 a night just to walk through the front door. Like, nobody seems to be talking about the last part. So let me ask you directly, does it bother you that he's charging, $500 a night at his resort while federal workers are taking gift cards just to be able to eat, just to be able to afford food? Let me know what you think in the comments about that.
Trump is strong-arming the Senate right now to try to save himself from getting his ass handed to him in the midterm elections. The president's going all in on this plan he has to tip the scales in his favor with what he calls the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, which he would like us to stop calling the SAVE Act. He wrote, for all of the fake news out there, it's called the Save America Act, not the SAVE Act. Nobody knows what the SAVE Act means. Okay, it's the SAVE Act. Got it. All you have to do is ask in a nice way. Seems like, though, he's going backwards with the slogans, right? It used to be Make America Great Again. Now it's Save America. Next week it'll be, for the love of God, help us, we're dying here. And Trump is now in full bully mode. He's forcing Republican senators to debate this bill he dreamed up to fight back against these completely fabricated claims of voter fraud. It's like if he made them build another wall at the Mexican border to keep the chupacabra out. That's how crucial this bill is. If it passes, a lot of married women who took their husband's name will have to get a passport to vote, or just leave the country.
Look, this was never about stopping fraud. This fraud is not the problem, and he knows it's not the problem. What actually happened is that he looked at the midterm map, and he didn't like what he saw. And instead of changing his policies or doing anything that actually improves people's lives, he decided to change, who gets to vote. That's the entire plan, laid out completely bare. And the most insulting piece of it all is that married women legally can change their names, are now going to need a passport just to prove they are who they say they are. Like, women who did everything right, who followed every rule, who filled out every form they were supposed to fill out, now they need an international travel document just to participate in their own democracy. Like, let me know, do you think that's right? Like, do you think it's about electorate integrity? Or could this be like something else?
The Trump administration is now reported to be exploring the idea of paying $1 billion to stop a French energy company from building offshore wind farms in New York and North Carolina. $1 billion of our money to cancel projects that harness an endless resource, wind. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the kind of math that bankrupts casinos. If this wind farm... Makes no sense at all. If the wind farm in New York alone was finished, it would produce enough electricity to power 1 million homes and businesses with free renewable energy every year. So, of course, it has to be stopped. This might be the craziest thing about him, this grudge Trump has against what he calls windmills. They're actually wind turbines. They're not milling anything, but it goes back 20 years when he bought land along the coast of Scotland to build a golf course and then found out they had an offshore wind farm being built nearby, which he didn't want blocking his view. So he sued and sued and sued, which is what he does, and he lost, which is also what he does. He even had to pay the Scottish government's legal costs, and since then he's carried this grudge against these random inanimate objects he calls windmills. This is like declaring war against lighthouses. And why? What does he have against the wind? I mean, other than this, Get a little opera. Pray it down.
He wants to spend $1 billion of taxpayer money to stop a wind farm. Really? $1 billion. And when you trace it back to find out why, you land on a lawsuit he lost in Scotland over like 20 years ago because he didn't like how the wind farm looked near his golf course. That is now an American energy policy. Like a personal grudge about scenery from 2 decades ago. And the wind farm would have powered millions of homes every single year with completely just free energy. No oil, no gas, no price spikes, no wars in the Middle East, just clean, free electricity. And he just killed it because it annoyed him once 20 years ago. That was enough to make that happen. And this is what happens when you hand unlimited power to someone who's never ever been once in his life, actually had to open like an electricity bill or like wonder how they're ever going to pay it. Doesn't that sound great? 1 million homes with free energy, but now it's killed over a golf course view. Like, what would you call that?
Lawmakers had the chance to interrogate CIA Director John Ratcliffe and the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, about the still unknown reasons for our war on Iran, the raid on the Fulton County election office, and some absolutely crazy fundraising emails their boss has been sending out.
I just want to point out something that was released about 6 days ago. This is a fundraising email from the president. It says, as a national security briefing member, you'll receive my private national security briefings. Do you think the public should be able to, supporters of the president should be able to pay and receive his private national security briefings?
It depends. Do they pay in cash? How much are they paying? I don't know. Basically, the question is, do you think our national security should be structured like an OnlyFans?
I don't know what that document is, but regardless of what it says, it didn't happen.
Oh, no, this is new.
But what I'm telling you is that the Hatch Act would prevent me from, in a political role, from engaging in that. I'm not aware that anything like that happened.
Yeah, this says unfiltered updates. So, Director Gabbard, do you have any comment on whether unfiltered updates of private national security briefings should be made to individuals that donate to the president?
I'm not familiar with that document.
She said the same thing about the Constitution, by the way. I often wonder, I really do, I wonder, how could anyone vote for this man who appointed all these dopes? I mean, I get being a Republican, you have different views politically, I understand all that, but of all the people whose opinions match up with yours, how the hell did we wind up with him? And the good news is, it seems I am not the only one wondering that lately.
If you could say something to President Trump and he was going to hear you right now, what would it be?
You're a worthless pile of
And you voted for him how many times?
3 times. That was my bad. Apparently, I'm an idiot.
All right, well, admitting it is the first step. It may have taken you 3 elections to get here, but we're happy to welcome you into the Trump's a worthless pile of bleep club.
Look, Trump was sending fundraising emails promising donors private national security briefings in exchange for money. Like, read that back slowly. The President of the United States was selling access to classified national security information through a campaign email list. And when his own intelligence director, sat in front of Congress and was asked about it, she looked directly into the camera and she said, "Oh, I'm not familiar with that document." The same document that was blasted out to millions of people on the internet. and could be found by anyone with a basic Google search. And somehow that answer was just accepted and everyone moved on. But here's the part that actually cuts the deepest. The woman that voted for him 3 times, like, called him out on camera. Like, she finally saw through all of it. But she was talking about the people who never questioned it once. At least she figured it out, like, eventually. Most of them haven't even started.